Thanks for joining us for the Planify Podcast. My name is Casey Cease. I'm the host. Today, I have my friend Brad Bevers. He's a longtime friend of mine. We live together in Brenham, Texas. He's a realtor, broker, investor. He's an elder with me at Redeemer Church here in Brenham, and just a great guy. Really excited for you to hear his story of coming up in real estate, making it through the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, how he navigated that, talking about growing his business, how he leveraged a book to grow his real estate business, how he partnered with a parallel type business to free up his time and energy, which led to 3 times growing his business 3x. We also talk about faith and family. We talk about what the future might look like and a lot of fun stuff. So I'm glad you joined us today. Enjoy the show. All right, Brad, here we are in St. Charles, here in Brenham, the St. Charles studio. I don't know if we're calling it that, but we'll see if it sticks. But anyways, really glad to have you on the show today, and wanted to just share a little bit with everybody your business background. I remember meeting you in 2007. You became a friend quickly when we moved to Brenham with the Hydes to plant Christ Church, which is now Redeemer Church. And you were their realtor, and you became our realtor. And I remember Braylon was still in a baby carrier when we met, and you're a young dude, just finished college and doing real estate. So while we talk about business life and everything else, like, tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate and the first few years of doing real estate.
Yeah, so I got into real estate. My grandparents started the company here in Washington County, 1981. So I was born in 1982. So it's been my entire life. I've seen what they've done. 2005, when I graduated college, I decided to try real estate, worked as their assistant for a little while, was really just getting going whenever I met you and helped you buy your first place out here. And that was, I just never left. So I, got into real estate, ended up liking it a lot, and kind of grew my business from there. So hard to believe that it's been over 20 years now that I've been selling real estate out here with a lot of ups and downs along the way, as you know.
Well, and I do. And that's one of the things I think for a lot of business owners thinking about, we hear stories of business owners only talking about success. And while you've achieved some great success, we were also friends and doing publishing together back during the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. And I wasn't as aware of macroeconomics back then, or microeconomics, but I felt it. But I wanted you to talk through a little bit of your experience in real estate during one of the greatest financial crises of our lifetime back in 2008, 2009. What was that like?
Yeah, one of the hardest parts about real estate is you really have to build up a book of business, and that takes years. For most areas in the United States, it takes about 7 years to build up a big enough book of business to sustain yourself in the low times. 2008 hit. I'd only been a real estate agent for 3 years, and I wasn't very good at it yet. So I did not have a good enough book of business to survive. So my income dropped by 80%. We were really just surviving off of my wife's teacher salary. And, I was looking for different options, things to do, talked to a few friends, and ended up talking to you about different options. And you graciously sold me half of a publishing company that was new at the time, but I bought in thanks to a loan from you that you loaned me in order to buy in. And then we grew that for a couple of years and really helped me get through, 2008, 2009, when real estate was just dead out here.
Well, I appreciate your humility, but I remember being with you during 2008, 2009. And as laid back as you come off, you're quite the entrepreneur. And I really respected that about you during that time. I mean, if I recall correctly, you were helping with the publishing company. You were also reselling books, because books are a passion of yours. Why don't you tell a little bit about how you came up with the idea and how you did all that? Because it's what I want to think through is kind of the innovation of, hey, things, what I'm normally doing aren't working how I need them to right now. And you really fought hard at some pretty significant cost to yourself to make it through that season. Why don't you tell a little bit of just the idea of the book reselling that you did? Because I think it's important for people to think how you innovated and looked for opportunities during that time.
Sure. Yeah, the book reselling, I got really good at it because I just love books. So it was I did not make a lot of money at it, but I built a nice library. So I still tell that story whenever people come over and see the amount of books that I have, which is over 10,000 at this point. But I was able to buy them very cheaply. So one of the things I did, I made a deal with a local nonprofit here who gets donated books and they would sell them. I made a deal with them where I would buy any books they didn't want for $7 a box, and then I would take those and resell them, specifically to a store that's shut down now, but it was Hastings. We had a lot of them in the South and in Texas, and I would average $50 to $75 a box in store credit. So then I could buy books for 10 cents on the dollar, and just kept doing that, growing my library and also growing my knowledge base. So even though it didn't make me a lot of money, I was able to kind of build my library and my background knowledge for real estate and business in a really effective way that's paid a lot of dividends now. So,
but weren't you also able to take in-store credit, buy other gift cards that you're doing there, and monetize it that way some as well?
Yeah, so towards the very end of that, the arc of book buying, we could kind of see the end approaching, and we knew that Hastings wasn't doing as well and would be shut down sometime soon. Every time we brought in books, I mean, we would bring in 1,000 books at a time. It would take them all day to go through and price them all. It just wasn't a good business model. So we ramped up for the last year, and I think we ended up making about $30,000 that year off of book buybacks. And because I'd bought all the books that I wanted in the store, literally, then we started buying Southwest gift cards, and we could sell those for 90 cents on the dollar online, and then kept the cash and used that to buy more books, and then used it to kind of pivot into other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made it through the financial crisis. I remember you started seeing a business coach, and you also then came up with this idea. Was it Dan Kennedy that kind of gave you the idea to write your book, or how did that idea come about? I don't remember, for your Texas Farm and Ranch Land Guide, because I remember you coming to me saying, I have this idea, I'm going to write this book, or I wrote this book, I'd like to publish it, and I'm going to send it out. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you came up with that idea, and then how it's helped you over time.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big reasons I wrote the book is because I owned half of a book publishing company with you.
That's helpful.
Yeah, just being in the business, liking books already, seeing the process, like that part made it easier. But yeah, I did read a book by Dan Kennedy. I'm not sure which one, because I've read a dozen by him at this point. But one of the things he recommended was just becoming really good at selling yourself authoritatively. So what I tell people is my book, which it's pretty small. It's more of a booklet, and it's really a fancy.
We call them
card.
Microbooks in the publishing business now. Yeah.
Microbook. But it's really a fancy business card. So it explains to my clients how to buy farm and ranch real estate in Texas, different things you need to know. Most people never open it. I'd say 98%, but it has my contact information on it. And I've used, that's the primary way that I've grown my business over the years. So it's been a really effective tool as far as that goes.
How did you first get it out there?
Well, I published it. Whenever you publish a book with a publisher like we were running, it goes to Amazon, it goes to different sites. Reality is you will never make any money off of royalties. So unless you're Stephen King, unless you're selling millions and millions of books, you're not going to do that. So I always knew that to get my book to work, I was going to have to convert books that I gave away into real estate commissions. So I had lists built, would hire people at that time in Singapore or the Philippines to comb through different tax records, find people who were likely to sell at some point in the near future, and mail out my book to them, specifically in Washington County. So I would mail out 500, 700 books at a time. Usually I would get 3 to 5 listings for every book mail out that I did, and kind of grew my business from that standpoint.
So it's about a 1% conversion rate on the mail out?
That's about right.
Yeah.
And some of those, I mean, the advantage of a book is it lasts a long time. So even, that 1% conversion rate was within, 60 days of the book mail out. But I know that a lot of people kept that book and called me years later. So I didn't keep up with it well enough to track that kind of granular data, but I'd say 1.5% to 2% would probably be the real rate of return.
And what about your journey moving just from selling real estate to owning a real estate agency or brokerage, and then partnering with a company like Side. I think that's an interesting story. If you can talk a little bit about that environment of Side and how you got involved with that and the way you've structured your business now and why.
Sure. So started off as a real estate agent, 2005, grew my business, kept growing every year. Eventually I was the top salesperson at our company that my grandparents owned 3 or 4 years in a row, and really started just wanting to do more, wanting to own the company and wanting to buy them out. They were nearing the end of their career arc and were looking for an exit. After trying a couple of different, you know, ways to pass on the business, we decided it was just easier for me to buy them out.
Mhm.
So bought them out about 8 years ago now, and have been the owner and broker since then. So
Yep.
we went from 6 agents whenever my grandparents owned it. Now we have 24 agents.
Wow.
Have really grown the business a lot numbers wise. A lot of that, fortunately, I've just ridden the wave of Washington County and COVID. So we saw prices go up 3 to 5 times during COVID in this area, and that helped quite a bit with commissions. So, and then this company Side approached me 5 years ago. Side is, I don't know how exactly to describe them, but they're a broker that I've hired to run the back end of my company. So they take all of the legal and all of the compliance off of my plate, and they also provide a tech stack and different sorts of help, including recruiting and a lot of other tools. I pay them to do that, but so legally, I'm not the broker of my company anymore. I am just the owner of my company. They have taken on that role. They're in charge of making sure my agents' contracts are filled out correctly and keeping up with them. So it's taken a big weight off of me. It was, having 24 agents, at different levels of time in the business and skill that you're trying to teach. It was a lot to do that for 24 people. So Side has really helped me, take that off my plate. I've been able to travel a lot more, do kind of other things that I want to do. Been well worth the investment with them.
And I think that's the thing that we talk a lot of business owners about, where they realize they're hitting a growth cap, and a lot of it's because the owner's taken on too much of the tasks, right? And there's always, I think, this fear of, well, if I hand that off or outsource it or hire someone for it, then that's less for me. How would you encourage somebody, a business owner who's maybe taking on more and more or capping their own growth based on their own, what's all on their plate? How did your
Yeah.
thinking change to start making these type of investments in an organization like Side or hiring people or things like that?
Yeah, I think again, I'll go back to what I said before. And in some ways, I was lucky. So when Side approached me, it was right at the beginning of COVID, and there was a lot of uncertainty. And the way that their business was set up at the time, it's changed a little bit. I would pay them a percentage of what I made over the next year, and I could get out of the contract at any time. My thinking at the time was, I'm not going to make any money this next year, so I may as well try this. I've got nothing to lose. I can see kind of if this is a fit, and if it is, when I'm actually making money, great. I'll keep with them. The year before I signed with Side, we had closed 45 million at the company. I signed with Side thinking it's going to be dead. We're barely going to make it, but I'm only paying you a percentage of what I make, so we can roll the dice. I ended up that year making 85 million, so
Wow.
almost double what we had ever made as a company. And Side was an enormous help in that process. So yes, I did pay them a good amount of money, a fair amount of money, but my time was just so much more effective. So what I tell people is, my business has more than tripled since I joined Side, but my workload has gone down about 50%. So
Wow,
those
that's
kind of
something.
ratios and that timing just made it well worth it for me. I can spend more time with my family. I can travel more. I can, help at the church more, can do other things that I just would not be able to do without that kind of partnership.
Yeah. So I I know that you're an investor. You've invested in a lot of different things. When did that kind of start shifting for you? I mean, you've always had an investor mindset, but when did that transformation, when you started realizing, okay, my primary method of making money is improving, it's growing, we're experiencing success. When did you really start thinking through, okay, I want to diversify my money and my efforts, my portfolio? What was that thinking process like for you?
Yeah. So one of the advantages of being in real estate is, you on average you make about a 3% commission whenever you help somebody buy a place, and I was able to do that, and I realized like helping somebody buy $1 million property, if I made $30,000, that's great. But then I realized the people who I was helping were not making 3%. They were making 20, 30, 40%. They were making 200, 300,000. And I just wanted to be on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So rather than just being an agent and helping other people, which I really enjoy, I also wanted to invest more, learn how to do that the right way. So, took baby steps. Actually, the first building that I bought is the building we're in right now.
Yeah.
So originally I bought this building with two other partners, and through a lot of other partnerships, now you and I own it together 50-50. So, uh, and I've had this for 15 years and have now purchased a lot of different real estate buildings, commercial and residential, and have just grown in my own knowledge that way. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's also made me a much better agent and broker. So I can advise clients on the right ways to do it, how to make money, how to think about investment, not just for financial reasons, but also, how can you use this space to help the community? How can you use it to help your church? How can you use it to help your family? So just being involved on the investment side has given me a lot more tools to think about those things. The other part of investment that I've gotten into is angel investing, primarily just making investments in companies. That also came about sort of through real estate. One of my clients pitched me on investing with them really before I was at a point where I should have been doing things like that. So it was generous of them to kind of take me under their wings and teach me some of the ropes. Made a couple of small investments, but just learned that it fit my personality really well to do angel investments. So one of the big advantages for me with angel investments is that once I invest the money, you do a lot of research up front. You have to make a yes or no decision, put up the money, and then the money's gone and you can't do anything about it. It's very illiquid. So once the money is invested, it stays there. That works well with my personality. I don't have to go back and rethink, like maybe I should pull that out and put it in another company. It's gone. So you get to kind of watch it grow from there. But now I've gotten to the point where I have investments in 25 different companies, including Side, the company I partnered with, and a lot of other companies, some that we're invested with together. But it's been a lot of fun for me to do that sort of thing.
So in your business, you get to interact with a lot of different business owners at different places, in your coaching environments and everything else. What are you noticing kind of trends for business owners right now, just with everything going on in the economy, geopolitically, everything else? What are you picking up on?
Yeah, I think, one thing that's been true for a long time for business owners is that there's not enough people who are willing to kind of take the risk, I think, of business ownership. So I don't think that has changed, but the stakes have gotten higher. So uh, what I have encouraged other people to do is just to be willing to step out and take that risk. I think a lot of people, you'll hear the traditional business advice is that you should say no to almost everything and just concentrate on the very small. I think most people start saying no way too early. So, my path and what we've talked about, I said yes to almost everything for the first 15 years of my career. I said yes to book publishing, yes to selling books, yes to working odd jobs to make ends meet. But now I'm at a point in my career where I can start saying no and using those no's to say yes to my family and yes to other things that have become really important for my time. But I think too many people start saying no too early. So
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the way I tell people I look at risk is so many people approach life risk averse. And the way I see it is like, I view life, everything's a risk. To do something is a risk. To not do something is a risk. Maybe it's because of my background, my upbringing, having a Vietnam vet dad, but like there's risk involved in every decision I'm making. right? My friends that have salary jobs that have been working at a corporation get laid off tomorrow and get a severance and don't have anything. Like, to me, that's a risk. In the same way of starting a business and having it fail is a risk. But I think this risk taking is, I think speaks more to the large framework of people really understanding what they want long term, why they want it, what they're willing to give to get that, and rather focusing on security. But a lot of security that we start building is a false sense of security. It's not really secure at all. I mean, knowing, you and I are good friends. And so knowing the investments you make, some of them you're like, seems like a good idea. I did my research. We'll see what happens. Right. It's kind of at that place now. Back in 2008, 2009, neither of us were in a position to be able to take some of those risks. And so I think risk is somewhat commiserate, but I think owning a business, running a business is inherently a risk. And there is a fallacy, I don't know if that's the right word, but of like, we'll get to a certain point where there's no more risk involved. Well, risk is always there, right?
Sure.
It's all in risk management. And so how have you noticed as you've grown your real estate portfolio, your investment portfolio, everything else, how do you view and tolerate risk? Has it changed much for you? Is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, I think when you first start out is the riskiest time. So like when you first when you buy that first investment property, when you start, open your doors for the first time, it can be very risky. So I remember the first house that I bought to flip, it was only, I think we paid $120,000 for it. We ended up selling it and made a total of $30,000 profit after all the work we put in, paying fees, paying taxes. And that $30,000 was really, really important because if we had lost money on that first deal, we wouldn't have been able to go get the next couple of deals. So that when you're at the beginning, the risk feels much higher, and it is. If you have a setback at the very beginning, it can set you back years, not weeks.
Yeah.
As you grow in your business, you're able to take much more asymmetrical risks. So like the angel investing is a good example. You can make very small investments, and the downside is I lose what I invested, which is a small amount. The upside is asymmetrical in that it has the potential to go up 10x, 100x, 1000x, and that small investment turns into a really large number at the end of the day. So when you have a little bit of extra income, you can still do things that look risky on paper. Angel investing is risky on paper, but the reality is there's very little risk whenever you have a cushion that you've built up and can spread that risk out.
So let's talk a little bit about family. So you've got 4 boys. What are their ages now?
15, 14, 13, and 9.
And 9. And so how do you think about them with approaching business and integrating them into that? A lot of families are like that. Kids doing kid stuff. We're doing adult stuff. But I've seen you have, like, your eldest son last summer worked with you during the summer. So like, have you been thinking about raising up boys and integrating them into your business?
Yeah, I feel like I've grown a lot over the past couple of years in that area. So having bought a family business from my grandparents, I'm the 3rd generation. I've got the 4th generation coming up, and my sons have a lot of cousins where we live who are also interested in the business. So one of the reasons why I've been so determined to grow my real estate business is I've got a lot more people in the next generation who potentially, want to be in it and will have their own mouths to feed whenever they grow up. Prior to a couple of years ago, I was always really worried and cautious about encouraging my kids to be in my business. I never wanted them to feel like they had to do it. So I was really more hands off, almost pushing them away from it. Do your own thing, follow your own path. And in the past couple of years, my thinking has really shifted. Thanks to a couple of books I read. Family Revision in particular was really helpful. But I think that paradigm of pushing your kids away is actually a lie. And the truth is that my boys will have a better start and more help from me if they start a business in Washington County, if they go into the same business that I have, if they start an adjacent business. That's just reality. I can help them a lot more here than I can anywhere else in the world. I can help them a lot more with real estate or an adjacent business than I can with any other type of business. So I've felt a real freedom in communicating that to my boys, and also encouraging them to think about real estate seriously. So one of those ways is I bring, in between their 8th and 9th grade year, they're going to work with me at the office for summer and kind of learn what is it like to go on listing appointments, and what does the day-to-day look like for a real estate broker? What do you do for investment properties week to week? So all of those things, they get to shadow me, kind of learn, and decide if they want to go deeper into it or not. So far, only my oldest has done that. My second oldest will start in a couple of weeks for this summer, but really looking forward to it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, other than it's become really important for me to think about ways to integrate my family, my faith, and my business as much as possible.
Yeah. So 3 to 5 years out, what does that look like for Brad Bevers and his family and his business and everything else?
Yeah, 5 years from now, I'll have three sons who are out of high school. So that's hard to believe. 5 years from now, I'd love to be at a point where my boys are either working with me or in a career that really works for them, and very confident in the direction they're going. As far as my business goes, I really love the path that we're on right now. I love my agents who work with me. I think that we're in a really good place to kind of grow steadily over the next 5 years and continue to use the new AI tools and different tools that Side has provided to grow our business, become more effective agents. And then, let's see, I've talked about family, business, faith. I love our church and kind of what we're doing there. We're going through a building project right now. So 5 years from now, I'd love to see our church grow. Really, I think we have the potential to double in the next 5 years. So I think that's kind of what I see.
That's great. Well, Brad, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure you'll be back and we'll talk about some more stuff. That'll be good.
Sounds good.